and welcome into Coleman today. I'm Debbie Wood and our very special guest this morning, Clif Powell. Clif is here. I recently friended him. I don't have Facebook, but my husband does, so I went on my husband's Facebook, friended him because I wanted to be able to invite him to come on the Coleman in the Morning show and talk about his new book. I'd been hearing all about the book, and it's Pray Hard and Speak Life, and we just want to welcome you this morning.
Well, thank you
for being here this morning. And I've got to say this, Clif, I've known you, of you for a long time, and your precious family and your wife, wonderful school teacher at East Elementary, known your mom and dad, know your brother Wes, knew the sister a little bit just from Coleman High School, but never really got to know you until the last few years.
Sure.
And I think a lot of that is because of Tamika.
You're right.
Tamika, his wife, teaches at East Elementary, and just a precious family, sweet, sweet family.
Thank you.
Let's talk about you just a little bit. You wrote the book.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things leading up to writing this book. How old are you,
I'm
Clif?
38.
You're 38.
Yes.
Okay, you're just a baby. It's just a baby, just a kid. When I read that excerpt of the book, I want to read this to you for just a second before we dive right in. Whether it's a financial struggle, physical ailment, or emotional tragedy, you have the ability to determine if the battle you face will be lost or won. In Pray Hard and Speak Life, the author, which is Clif, reflects on some of the most challenging battles he has faced and how one friend who became the love of his life stayed by his side through it all, only to become the victim of a battle that taught him how to pray hard and speak life. That says so much in just such few words. You know, tell us about your life growing up and how you got to the point where you met your wife.
Yeah, so I grew up in Coleman, graduated from Coleman High School, and moved off to Alabama at that time. Throughout high school, I was more on the wilder side, I guess you could say, while Tamika seemed to be a little bit more spiritually raised. I was, when I started going to college, basically went through 3 years there and then wound up meeting Tamika through a class that we had together, child psychology.
Oh, wow. And you got a degree in education, didn't you?
Yes.
Bachelor of Science in Education. Did you ever teach?
No, I did
you
not.
Never taught?
Never did.
You did sales?
I did sales, yeah. I was in outside sales from the start.
And I can see with your personality, you doing sales, it takes a special person to be able to meet people and do the sales. Is it something that you enjoyed, or was it stressful? Or
Sales, it's a roller coaster ride. I mean, it's something I enjoyed. I love meeting new people and getting to know them. But the sales process is a roller coaster ride.
It really is,
It's always
isn't
a battle, yeah.
You know, when you look at Clif, the first thing I think of is Opie. I mean, he looks like Opie. I mean, he's just not a Dennis the Menace, but more like an Opie. You were 12 years old, and did things start happening in your life earlier than 12?
No, basically in 5th grade I won the Good Citizenship Award, so I was always a really good kid growing up, you know. And then 6th grade I kind of decided that I guess I was going to try the wilder side of life, and made some friends with the wrong people, I guess.
Do you remember that in 6th grade? You remember when it all started?
I do, yeah. I remember going to New Year's Eve party, an adult party in Warrior, and they wound up feeding us alcohol and drinking strawberry daiquiris and margaritas, and started drinking, and then you know, something I never thought I'd do again because how sick I got that night, and then wound up finding myself, you know, going to drink again the next week, and then that began to lead into more drinking as I grew older. Started partying harder. In high school, I found myself experimenting with some drugs, marijuana and LSD and some other stuff, and then college came and things got a little bit more intense as far as that was concerned. And,
now, did your mother, I know your mother, she's precious, and she was a school teacher, lifelong retired school teacher. Did she have any idea at that time that all that was going on?
No.
Did you hide it from the family forever?
No, I mean, she knew I drank, I mean, a little bit, but she didn't know anything about the other stuff, you know. She didn't know, and, you know, I got in trouble a lot. I stayed in trouble a whole lot in my junior year especially, but yeah, she did. She didn't know how deep it had gotten and how bad it had gotten. No one really did, unless you're in inner circle.
Right.
You know, there was two sets of friends that I had in college. One I'd go party with and drink with on weekends and stuff,
Right.
and the other was I'd, you know, hang out and do drugs with, and they were both isolated, you know, so neither one of them really hung out with the other. But it was two groups, so yeah.
Now, you, of course, have the younger brother and an older sister, and then what kind of relationship did y'all have? Did they know that any of this was happening with you?
Not to the level
really?
it was, yeah. No, not to the level it was. Wesley was 6 years younger than I am, and he didn't know at all, probably. My sister, I was actually roommates with her in college for 1 year.
Were you? Okay.
So she knew about the drinking and stuff, but at that time the drug stuff wasn't really as heavy as what it got after she graduated. Once she graduated, then I lived by myself and lived with another friend, and so it kind of escalated from there. And,
now, did you have a good relationship with your dad at that time? I mean, you say your mom didn't know. Was it a good relationship?
No, I mean, you know, Dad and I kind of butted heads throughout our whole life. We did, you know. He was a very demanding person, and which is okay. You know, there's people like that, and I was more rebellious, and when he wanted me to do something, I would tend to rebel. And you know, I look back now and realize that a lot of the things that we battled were probably my fault. You know, and I realize that and accept that responsibility now. But
you were young and you were looking for your place.
I was looking for my place.
You were looking for your place, and so that went on from the time you were 12. That just is so surprising or shocking to me, that, and that's why we have to, and you have wonderful, beautiful children, and we have to try to be so involved in our children's lives, and show so much love and care, and not that your parents didn't, but sometimes it takes extra. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah. Well, I think it's just basically a different. You know, I look back at how I was raised, and not that my parents raised me wrong or anything. But I look back, and the freedoms that I had, you know, allowed me to experiment and get into things that I shouldn't have. You know, and they would have never imagined. They would have never imagined that I would have taken it to the extent that I did. You know, a mother doesn't know, and a dad doesn't know. You know, and really, I don't think it's as much the raising of the parental role as I do as the friend choice. You know, I look back and see who I hung out with. They tried to control who I hung out with. The person that got me involved in most of the bad things that I did was one person, and she did not want me hanging out with him. But I pretty much told her I was going to, and I did anyway. And
so that's an important thing, folks. I mean, to really know who your kids are hanging with and where they're going and what they're doing. I mean, it's just. But if we are, and so many of us are, very strong-willed, and we want to do what we want to do. So that was happening once, and then you got married, and then you, at that time, you go through a bankruptcy. Is this later in your life? Tell us about that.
Yeah, it is. So basically, I was working for Dad, and he wound up closing the doors to the shop, and I wound up becoming a tool dealer for a tool company, and wound up didn't agree with the morals that they had and the ethics that they had in their company, and decided to exit that company. And whenever I did, I was told that they would work with me for payments. And then I get a bill for $118,000 that has to be paid by December. And this is in October when I received the statement. So, you know, I didn't have that kind of money to pay. So when December rolled around and the end of the year hit, my credit score went from about 720 to 418. And I didn't really have a choice. But for about 2 years we held on and tried to not bankrupt on them.
Sure.
And then when we got involved in church, we just prayed about it and prayed a lot about it. And Tamika came to me one day and said, you know, I feel comfortable if we do it, because as long as that write-off was showing on my credit, I was going to have the low credit score. It would never come up. And the attorney said that, you know, if we would go ahead and file on it, then after 7 years it'll come off.
It'll just come off.
Right. Yeah.
So did you feel at that time that, I mean, how did you feel? Did you think just the devil was after you and all this?
No, at that time I wasn't. No,
you didn't really think about it?
I didn't think about it. I didn't understand spiritual warfare at that time. I didn't understand. I mean, I was living the simple life. I was drinking all the time, you know, and partying, and having a good time, and what I thought was a good time.
Sure.
You know, so the enemy tends to leave me alone. You know, he left me alone because I was where he wanted me to be, just like me. So if you're out there and and you're living that lifestyle, things may seem great and wonderful,
Right.
but what you don't know is the enemy has you right where he wants you. So why is he going to bother you?
Well, that's
You
true.
know, God gives us free will. He's going to let us make the choices we make. He offers us and he knocks, but if we don't ever open that door, then he's not going to, then we have to go to him and open that door. We have to seek him.
Sure.
So the enemy's going to leave you alone. So at that time, no, I didn't consider it a spiritual warfare or anything like that.
Not anything
I
at
just
all.
thought it's an earthly thing, and I had control of everything. I thought I was in
Wow.
control.
You thought you were in control. Folks, we're going to take a little break at this point, and when we come back, you're not going to want to miss the second segment because he's going to explain to you what happens when he thinks everything's just fine. And at that time, how many children did you have? Did y'all have?
We had 3 at that time,
At that
and
time.
1 on the way.
And 1 on the way. So 3 children, 1 on the way. Precious wife, Tamika. And so stay with us. We'll be back with a lot more right after this.